What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Gobbler Effect, Season 2, Episode number 10 here on the Virginia Tech Hockey Network. My name is Chris Pierce. Happy to be back with you for another episode. And joined today, once again, by head coach Joey Mullen, as well as special guest and a happy welcome back to the channel of assistant coach Dave Stanley. Gentlemen, how are we both doing on this fine afternoon?
Good. How are you?
Doing great,
Doing
Chris.
great.
How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. Well, it's been a lot to celebrate for Virginia Tech hockey this past weekend. On Thursday, it was revealed that you guys were ranked sixth in the ACHA Southwest region, and then you guys followed that with some even better hockey this past weekend as you guys swept the Wake Forest Demon Deacons in a home and home bout. Guys, I'm just gonna start. We'll start with the rankings first on Thursday. I was gonna ask, what was your initial reaction to finding out where you guys were ranked?
I mean, I thought we'd be somewhere in that 6 to 10 range, just kind of looking at other teams' records, who teams have played. Thought we had a really good start. We won the games we were supposed to win, and we won them by how we were supposed to do it. I mean, the only losses we've had this year were both one goal losses, one in overtime. So I knew 6 to 10 was probably a good guesstimate in my thoughts.
I think I'd agree with Coach Mullen. We were maybe a couple of spots higher than I originally expected us to be, but we were right in that ballpark, and it's a great start. But there's a long way to go to hold that ranking to get us through the rest of the season.
Were you
Were
guys
you guys?
more surprised by the facts that you were that high, or is this where you actually hoped you guys would be as compared to where you were at the start of the season?
I mean, I was kind of thought that's where we should be. Only lost two games. One was the first game of the year against a good NC State team, and it was a one goal game. Ran off 13 straight before running into a really tough Penn State team. Took them down to the wire. I mean, the only time they led in that game is when they won in overtime. So thought we are pretty evenly matched with both of those teams. So I don't know exactly the formula they use to come up with these rankings. I don't know how it ends up, but we ended up sixth, and so I mean we're gonna take it. Puts us in a good spot going forward. See what happens.
Yeah, I hope that through the rest of this semester and into our schedule for the next semester, where we'll be playing all the teams that are ranked around us, that we can continue the strong play, and we'll let the ranking numbers take care of themselves. We'll just take care of our business on the ice.
Yeah. Well, you guys, according to the ranking systems, are basically the best team in the ACCHL above Penn State, obviously, who beat you guys. Are you guys surprised of that, considering you guys lost to Penn State and earlier in the season to NC State, who are below you?
I mean, I think when you look at all the data and data points that they use, common opponents. I mean, I think you could take any four of the top teams: the Penn State, NC State, UNC, us. Like throw a coin up in the air and like whatever it lands on, they're gonna win. Like any of us can beat anybody any night. We're four really good teams. I mean, even you look at teams like Maryland, played NC State and UNC extremely tough. Like our league is difficult, so I don't know that there's going to be a clear cut favorite number one team in our league at all. Anybody can beat anybody. It happens every night. Delaware and Rider split this weekend. Like it just happens.
I think that goes to showing exactly why we have to approach the season the way we have so far. We got to take each game on its own. We got to take each period within a game on its own. And if we can win the little battles, we'll win the big battles, and all of that will play out in the rankings when the ranking periods end.
Yeah. Well, Coach Moon, I know we talked a little about this past weekend with, the rankings wise, and we're M2. Some of these teams that we're ahead of are in M going to be in M1 next season. What is it? How does it feel to, know that you're in that mix of some of the teams that are going to be promoted next season? What does that mean to the program?
I mean, I feel like we've always had the talent to play with some of those Division One teams. I mean, like the last couple of years, we played George Mason, uh, tied them, beat them. So I mean, we're getting kids of that caliber. The reason why we didn't decide to go was our rink is 45 minutes from campus, so that's tough to recruit to. Um, and also like the school, we have no help in admissions, like some of these other schools have a little bit of help with. So it's hard to recruit with like the Liberties and the UNLVs and the Adrians that get a lot more help as far as getting kids into school. And so I felt like we've been down probably 5 or 6 years ago. We were really struggling. We really worked hard to build back up to where we're at now. And I didn't want to jump to D1 just to say, hey, we're D1 and kind of put us back where we were. I think we're good at the D2 level. I think we have a good program, good situation going on here. We're just going to ride it out and see what happens.
I'd agree. I think if you look at it, Chris, and you know some of the teams that are moving, and you know some of the other teams that were already there, over the last 10 years that I've been working with Coach Mullen, we've played several D1 teams, some of which, you see now and others. We've been, I'd say, fairly successful against the teams that we've played. So I think much like our division and the premier division within the ACC, on any given night, I think we can play with a lot of teams, whether they're a D2 premier team or whether they're a D1 team. But on any given night, the opposite end of the spectrum could happen. So I think we're right there, and I think Joey really articulated why we're best where we are right now.
And one last question regarding, the rankings, if there are any critics, who would say maybe you guys are too high or, you should be a little lower in a certain spot, what would you say to those who, think that, you guys just aren't at that level of play? I mean, not saying that there are, but like in the scenario that, there are those people, what would you say to them?
I don't think we'd say much. I mean, that's kind of been the talk. I mean, everybody knew like when we got to the game on Friday where we were ranked, and the talk was, well, it really doesn't matter. Like the first ranking's cool. Yeah, we're ranked pretty high. It's the highest we've been ranked in a while. But it doesn't. The first ranking doesn't matter. It's the last one. So if people don't like where we're ranked, I'm sorry. It wasn't my doing. We just go out and try to win each period, win each game, and let the computer do what it does.
Got nothing to add. That was perfect.
Well, let's talk about this past weekend. I'm going to start with Friday. You guys at home against Wake Forest. You guys got the win, but you guys did start a little slow. Why do you think of that? Why did you guys start slow and then eventually, built your way up throughout the second and third periods?
I mean, they had a short bench. Anybody that watched the game could see that. They had a bunch of guys out with some fraternity stuff. Hate that for them. Would have liked to play them with a full roster. I think it would have been a little tighter game, a little more competitive. I thought we started slow because of that. We knew they had 10 guys. Kind of those games are kind of hard to play when a team's got a short bench. You don't feel like you have to really put in the effort the whole time. And I thought that showed in the first couple periods. And then we just kind of stuck with our game and grinded it out and ended up 7-3. I mean, it is what it is. We would have liked to have a bigger score, but if you're winning a game by 4 goals any night, you're going to take that.
I'd say there might be one other factor in addition to those. We had 2 weeks prior, we had the long 3-game tournament weekend up at the St. James. And then in a scheduling quirk that I don't think I've seen in all my years working with Joe, we actually had a down weekend in November. And I haven't seen that in a while. So it had been 2 weeks since we played a game. And we had after the long weekend, we had an optional practice and we missed one in there with some paperwork and stuff. So we really only had a couple of skates. And I think it took us a couple of periods really to find our legs and get back to doing what we were doing previously. But once we did and we were able to get back to our game, I thought the guys rounded back into form pretty quickly in the third period.
Well, Coach Dave, I'm gonna now just turn over and ask you some questions about what you've seen throughout the season with the team. Being with this team basically since its start. I mean, what sets this group of guys apart from teams that you've coached or you've played on in the past?
I would say two things. The team has a level of maturity about it that maybe wasn't present in some of the previous teams. We've had some really talented teams over the last several years. This team arguably, could be one of the most talented, but what comes with it is a maturity that says we're going to continue to do things the right way and we're going to continue to work hard no matter what the outcome and no matter who the opponent is. So we're trying to get to the point where we put in the same consistency of effort against the NC States and the UNCs and the Penn States of the world as we do against some of the other opponents. And I think that maturity has let that happen or has forced it to happen. I also think there is a bond in our team room. I'm not going to share anything inside the team room here in the public, but this group works well together. They've bonded together, and you can see it in the way they support each other, both on and off the ice. And that's a huge help when you get in the battle and you've got to win that fight in the corner because you know the guy over your shoulder has your back, and you're working a little extra harder because you've got to have his back. So I think both of those things have added up to that.
Yeah. And, from your experience, do you think that this team, from your experience with the program, has the tools to possibly, go all the way to nationals even?
I think the team has the desire. It's one of their goals from a long-term goal perspective. We're checking off some of the short-term ones as we go along. I think so far they've demonstrated a work ethic that's consistent with those goals. Whether they get there or not will be purely up to them in terms of do they continue to put the work in both on and off the ice to play better. I hope we haven't played our best game yet this year. I hope we don't play our best game this semester. I hope we save them for late February and early March of 2025. And I hope that across that time, we continue to put the work in and continue to improve so that we're able to play at that level then. And if they do those things, and that's not something Coach Mullen and I can force to happen, but we can provide them the environment to learn the things they need to be ready to take those steps. And I hope that's what we do in practice.
Well, that certainly showed on Saturday's game where you guys had a 10-2 win over Wake Forest in Winston-Salem. You guys scored 8 unanswered goals in the second and third period. What lit the fire under the guys after, Wake Forest scored those quick 2 goals in the second period?
Actually, Chris, I think it was a good wake-up call for us. We played a really solid road first period down in Winston-Salem. I think Coach Mullen would agree with that. We came out of there with a 2-0 lead. We talked about a couple of things to correct between periods in the locker room, and then they came out not quite ready. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. You give up 2 goals in the first, minute and a half, minute 40 seconds. One of them was 20 something seconds into the period, maybe 17 seconds into the period. You weren't mentally ready. So while you had the knowledge and you had the desire, you didn't come out ready to go from the opening whistle. And I think they popped those 2 goals and evened the game up. And the switch clicked that said, uh-oh, we better get mentally ready. And once they kept it engaged, the result, I think, was shown through the rest of the game.
Well, one of the ways that you guys were able to, be so effective on the offense was through the special teams and specifically the power play. You guys on Friday were 2 for 7, but you guys bounced back in a huge way, going 5 for 8 on the man advantage on Saturday. Was there any changes that you made in those, 24 hours or less than 24 hours or so, or suggested to the guys in between the games that, they took and ran away with and running a successful power play?
We work on special team situations in practice. I think Coach Mullen does a great job with both of our power play units, kind of trying to make small tweaks to what they're seeing and how they can adjust to those things. So we give them those tools, they put them in the toolbox, and hopefully they pull them out at the right time. And I thought you saw both of our power play units make adjustments in how they attacked the Wake Forest penalty kill from Friday to Saturday. And I think that was the result that you saw in the improvement on Saturday. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just subtle little in-game adjustments. They really wanted to force us up top, so we started moving the puck from low to high and getting them a little scrambled. And once you get a team running around, it's easy to put one in the net. So both power plays have been really good this year. Probably 2 of the best ones we've had in a while, just as groups. They move the puck well. They're not selfish with the puck. It doesn't matter who scores, who gets what. They just, as long as they're putting the puck in as a unit, they don't care. So I think that's a big key. Is when we have struggled in the past, it gets to be a little hero hockey, and one guy wants to do it all. And we went through a little stretch like Penn State. We were over. And then we started the game, first game against Wake Forest, like 0 for 3 or 0 for 4. And we talked about that you got to end it. You just got to get a gritty goal to get one going into the net, and then more will come. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah, you guys scored 10 goals for the second time this season. You guys almost, well, flirting with three, considering you almost got 10 goals against UNC Charlotte earlier in the season. Uh, I don't, I don't have my record book on me to see like when was the last time you guys scored 10 plus goals in more than one game or two or more games in a season, but I'm assuming it's been a while. How fun is it to, keep your foot on the pedal throughout the game and have this high octane offense?
I think that's probably been one of the probably doesn't sound the best, but nicest things this year. We've historically had a team that would get up two, three goals and then kind of take their foot off the gas, and a team gets back in it that shouldn't, and then you get into a situation where one goal, one bounce, one stupid penalty, one mistake costs you a game that you shouldn't lose. And we've been in a lot of those in the past, and this team's just kind of different. Like I give a lot of credit to JH for being a freshman, but being a pretty vocal leader in the locker room. That just he's always said it. He's like, it doesn't matter how we start. If we play our game, every game ends up like this. So I think that's kind of the mentality this team has. It just don't stop.
Well, I mean, going back to the rankings, you guys beat Wake Forest, who was ranked number 16 in the Southeast region. How much does sweeping the Demon Deacons help you guys in the overall, perspective of the rankings?
I mean, it's big. Anytime you can beat a ranked team that's in the top 20, those are good wins. So they're up there for a reason. They've won a good amount of games. They were on like a 6 game win streak coming into Friday. So they've been on a roll. They beat Delaware at the showcase a few weeks ago. They split with or beat Denison in overtime, who we have coming up in a couple weeks. So we know what we have coming in. So we just got to be ready. So I mean, they're good wins. Ranked wins are always good wins.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
I'd agree.
I- Well, you guys, the ranked games don't stop coming. You guys have 9 out of your last 12 games against ranked opponents. How are these games going to help the team when it comes to, the playoffs in February, past that into, regionals or nationals? How is it going to prepare you guys, in facing tough competition coming up?
I mean, that means the playoffs start January 4th, basically. So you're playing playoff hockey from January 4th on, which is good. You get used to it, you get ready for it, you know the level of competition you're going to have every night. And you also got to think our playoffs are all ranked games, four rankings too, because it ends after our playoffs. So it's another three potential ranked games. So I mean, it could set you up really good going into regionals, or it could bury you depending on how you come out and play.
And, and I'd add to that, you really, we're going to go through, and you highlighted it, Chris, 9 of our last 12 games. But once we get to the playoffs, there are no more guarantee of games. It's a one and done. So we've got 12 games left to learn how to execute at a high level every shift of every period of every game. And if we can accomplish that, the wins and losses will take care of themselves. The ranking will take care of themselves, and we'll be well prepared for the postseason tournament down in Winston-Salem.
Yeah. I mean, and it starts, you could start this week with practice. You guys have a little gap in between with Thanksgiving break, and you play Denison on December 6th and 7th, and you have a little more of a break before you guys head back and prepare for the game in Charlotte. What are you specifically looking for in these guys during this time, to, prepare them for what is to eventually come? As you said, the playoffs start January 4th. What are you looking for in these guys when that time comes?
I mean, I think we'll rely on the older guys who've been through this. I mean, you got a decent amount of juniors and seniors on this team, a bunch of sophomores that played a whole lot as freshmen. So they've kind of been through this gauntlet the last couple of years. January are usually big months for us where we always play UNC and NC State, like, typically back to back in January. So January's are never easy months. So I think they'll be ready. We'll just keep it consistent in practice, keep pushing them get better every day, and they're pushing themselves. That's the easiest part.
And I think the leadership, both within the club and the seasoned EAs on the ice, are going to remind these guys, the things they can do while they're away before we come back for practice, whether it's for Denison or whether it's for the games in January. Get out and keep moving. Go home, enjoy some holiday time with your families, enjoy some downtime, but you know, let's keep some cardio edge to what's going on so that we come back and we don't have to start from square one. Okay. But I think the leadership will take care of that. I don't think that's something that Coach Mullen or I are going to have to bring up at all. They've got a strong set of leaders in that room, and I think the message will get out there. These guys are the ones that pick their goals for the year and are driving to these goals for the year. They know the work it takes, and they know what it's going to take for us to get there.
Well, one last question, and we'll end it on a fun one. Since Thanksgiving is just about a week away, I just want to know, I mean, what are you guys looking forward to eating on that Thanksgiving plate of yours? Just a fun question.
Fried turkey and mac and cheese are my favorites.
So I'm going to have to change our favorites because we don't have mac and cheese, but it's one of my personal favorites. But turkey's definitely up there, and I'm sorry, but mom's apple pie kind of goes in that list too. So
That sounds really good. Well, that'll do it for episode number 10 of the Gobbler Effect here on the Virginia Tech Hockey Network. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe on the channel here, as well as click the notification bell for live stream and content updates this season. Coach Stanley, Coach Mullen, thank you both for joining us. From all of us here at the Virginia Tech Hockey and the Virginia Tech Hockey Network, we all wish you a happy Thanksgiving. We are thankful to you all for tuning in all season long here on YouTube. Until next time, go Hokies.